This episode of the Two Dads Podcast is powered by the Salina Moose Lodge 1473, and here's what's coming up this week at the Lodge. On Wednesday, July 17th, it's Chris Brokamp live from 7 to 10 p.m. On Thursday, July 18th, it's Graveyard Daisies hitting the stage from 7 to 11 p.m. And then on Friday, July 19th, it's a full send day going into the weekend. Will Freed from 2 to 5 p.m. Then the Ladder Band keeps it going into the night because, yes, it's dress like a dad night. Bust out those white sneakers, socks with sandals, cargo shorts, and a tucked-in tee that says world's okayest golfer. Bonus points for a Bluetooth earpiece and a koozie from 2007. Prizes? Maybe. Respect? Absolutely. And then Saturday, July 20th, it's Schifferly Road Band taking the stage. And remember, every Tuesday from 5 to 8 p.m., it's Tiki Tuesday featuring different local artists each week. Come sip something fruity and support the local scene. If you want to be a part of something different, something special, and something unique, join the Salina Moose Lodge today. Hello, and welcome to the Two Dads Podcast, episode number 22. Bill Ray to my left. How you doing, Slick Willie? It's good to see you.
Hey, how are you, buddy? Fun fact, number 22, my high school baseball number.
Wow. So. It's come full circle. Why didn't we write that on the board? We were calling Cole Dallinghouse. We called Kerry Roberts Jr. We were trying to find number 22 from so many past high school teams. Maybe we'll have to quiz Tim Goodwin when he comes on and ask him if he remembers a specific 22. But how are you, buddy? It's good to see you.
I'm doing well. Rocking the new Ray Cup champions hat. So sorry, Peachy, Jack, and all you other losers. Team Bill retains the cup this year, baby.
Good job to Team Bill. We wouldn't have you back on the podcast. Actually, Jack and I had a bet. If he wins, he got to take the podcast for the week. So you will be coming back as the co-host. And sorry, Jack. Sorry about your luck.
Yeah, that could have been scary, but he would have been a good time.
How would have Jack done on the podcast? It's your brother. For those that are wondering, it's Bill's brother, Jack. Yeah. How would he have done if he had to be a co-host?
Stone sober, he would have fumbled a little bit, give him 6 beers, and he'd have been right where he needs to be.
It would have been a 4-hour podcast.
Yeah. No, it was good. We had Ray Cup all weekend, so a bunch of college buddies came up, and we always have our big golfing thing, go out on the lake. And we had a 5-0 lead after the first day. We blew it. Jake and Kyle lost 5 out of 6 points. We texted them, said, just don't lose 5 or 6 points, and we're good, and we win, and we come up on the last hole. And Brett had to make like a 38-footer, and he rimmed it out, or they would have won if he would have made that. And he rimmed it out like a 38-footer, tap in, go to the playoff, tie 1, tie 2, and then we won on hole 3. Shout out Petey, MVP, solo bird.
MVP.
There we go.
That's good.
Put that on a shirt down in Lexington. So, no, it was good. How was the food truck event?
Food truck event was good. I'll be honest with you, just to start this podcast out, I decided to get a cavity in today. I decided that right before we were going to have Tim Goodwin on, one of my favorite guests that I know we're going to have a good time here, I decided to have half my face numb. So right now I was smiling for Bill. I'm smiling for... It's terrible. I don't know why I decided to go into a podcast with a cavity and Novocaine's wearing off, so now the right side of my face hurts. But speaking of hurting, Coldwater was amazing. I will say this, and I want to give a quick shout out to the city itself. Thank you guys for coming out. We had a line, Bill. I know you were out there having a drink. You were having a good time golfing, but we had a line. Somebody took a panoramic shot. Actually, fun fact, it was our friends in Portland who own the Antique Mall. She had sent me a text. She took a panoramic view of this line, and I didn't even have time to come up for air. Even Rich was like, I didn't turn around the whole time. So Berkey and I were holding it down, getting sandwiches out, taking orders. Rich did a great job doing the chicken tenders, but it was a really cool event. I have to give a shout out to Ellen Winter. Thank you for having us. Anyone that invites the two dads out for the experience, invites us to their events, expects us to do a good job. We sincerely appreciate that. Ellen did a fantastic job. Marion Local graduate as well. We love to hear that. That's why she was so responsible. That's why she's so good at what she does. But it was amazing, man. We had a huge line. I'm starting to see some of the effects of the podcast. I think we got a lot of compliments that day. I think we're starting to see some of the fruits of our labor, where consistency, we say 1% better every single day. And I think we keep stacking days, and that line was not a result of ticket times. Although it's hard to get chicken out when it's super hot, but I will say people showed up and brings a tear to my eye. You know what I mean? It was really cool. So it was a great event. Can't wait to do it next year. The bands were amazing though. The fireworks, I don't know. It was hard to see through the trees, but the bands, it was amazing.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of some of those pictures is when you see other food trucks in succession behind them. And it's like, hey, I'm going to wait in this 20-person line at Two Dads, instead of the 4-person line at the next food truck, that kind of shows me what we're doing right? They're going to look and they say, I'd rather wait in a long line and it's hot out than go get the quick, easy fix 2 trucks down maybe. So that's just kind of maybe the competitive nature in me. But yeah,
we smoked them, dude. I'm not going to lie. I don't like to, I wish everyone's small business success. A lot of me is empathetic. We love to interview business owners here. We love to support business owners here. But when we go to play ball, okay, it's anyone's game, okay? And maybe we can talk to Tim Goodwin about that. But when we go out there, I want to compete. I want to go win, and I want to win by the most margin. I want to win by 90 points. Ask my dad when he used to play video games. I used to beat him 90-0. It was unenjoyable. I think parts of that's still around, a little more responsible. Shout out to Dad for taking those on the chin. But, we by far, we're one of the best trucks out there. And I'm very thankful for Coldwater for doing that. And speaking of, we're coming back. By the time this releases, it'll be the previous Friday. But we're heading back, so I'm excited to go to Coldwater again. Yeah,
and for future events coming up with you guys, when you hear this on Tuesday, we will have a private event July 16th in Salina. We will be doing the Salina Insurance Group. So we will be providing lunch for them and only their employees. So it is a private event. So as much as I'd love to have you out there, we can't have you out there. And this is another one of those private events that we talk about that, we really have the opportunity to capitalize on a big order in a short amount of time. We did all tenders previously, and we're
Globus, right?
Globus, and then we'll do half tenders, half sandwiches here. But they've been great to work with, giving us like half the tenders up front, and then the back half will be all sandwiches. So trying to stream it from an operations side to make it a little bit easier on you guys, not having to mess with the POS and take payment because Bill Montgomery's covering the tab up there, so that's nice of him. So shout out him. And then on the 18th and 19th, Boardwalk Fest. We will be out at Boardwalk Fest. Mitch is going to take a lot of time off that weekend, so it's going to be me and the boys back in the truck. So I'm excited to see the first big event I'll be handling. State Park, it wasn't too heavy. So being there at Boardwalk Fest without you and being able to control that's going to be fun. And then we followed up on the 21st. We head back to Marion. We had the color run canceled earlier in the year.
Oh, yeah.
So we have that event coming up on the 21st from 6 to 8 out there. They have Little League and Pony League out there. So come on out, support the kids in baseball, and then grab yourself some dinner with the dad. So we'll be out there from 6 to 8. Or kind of, whenever we need to close shop. If we got chicken and you guys are out there buying, we'll keep serving. So excited for next week's events, and then it just gets busy slammed after that.
Yeah, it does. But we have a very exciting podcast here today, though. I'm excited for Tim Goodwin to come on here. For those that are listening, they're probably fast-forwarding maybe through some of this operations talk, but it's nice to meet you. We're the Two Dads. Thanks for tuning in. A lot of things coming up here. A lot of things coming up as far as not slowing down. What event are you let's go back to Boardwalk Fest real quick. That is going to be one of your first events that you are going to be running the show without me. It's the first time that I've been able to, as I continue growth, to be able to step away from the truck and kind of allow it to flourish. I'm excited to see, how it operates without me. I know it's going to be well. It's just more of like a mind game for myself. I'm excited to see the truck flow. I'm excited to see you handle it. You're kind of playing it lightly here with the, St. Mary's event. Yeah, it was a little slower than we anticipated, and maybe that's on us, but I think you'll do just fine. I'm excited to just take a break because this is what we sort of have been manifesting for weeks. Like, I can't do this all on my own, especially, Tim Goodwin showed up today. He was talking about scaling to 4 or 5 trucks. I'm not going to be able to do 4 or 5 trucks, you know what I mean? And I don't want to break myself down. So maybe we'll ask him some questions too about, relinquishing some of the head coaching role to some of the assistants. It's a very similar kind of spot. Like, you're in there, you want to do every job, but then you realize at a certain point, you can't do every job well. You can't give the time to. You may have the talent, but you can't have the time to do every job well. So I'm excited to maybe poke some questions his way about that, and I'm excited for you to kind of rise to the occasion and run POS. Boardwalk Fest is a banger. I will say that they put on a good event at the Boat and Bike Show, but that's kind of like the boats have to show up, the bikes have to show up. Boardwalk Fest, they do it right, and it's going to be nonstop there. I think we made more money on sales than Boat and Bike Show. So if I'm not mistaken, this one's like it's like time and a half basically.
Yeah, this one's a big one based off last year's number. And like I said, pending weather, I see us putting up some really big numbers because I went over you with the financials so far this year, right? So the average income per day that we've had this year is about a 50% increase year over year. So this year's numbers, even though we're going to work about the same amount of days, we will bring in a lot more money for the same amount of days and same amount of hours. So that's kind of where that efficiency comes in, the marketing, everything like that, scheduling out for the year, not looking for events. We already know we're booked. Shout out Salina Moose, by the way.
Why?
They just locked us in for the first event of 2026. 352 days from now.
I can't even think about that, right? Honestly, I can't even think about that. We just got off the boardwalk. Like, people are still asking me. It's funny. In one tongue-in-cheek joke, they're like, "Are you still at the boardwalk?" Like, I get that question. You still at the boardwalk, Mitch? You still hanging out there? No. Have you driven by it and seen the truck ever? Well, no. But but on the other side, they're asking us to book for 2026. I mean, what a weird time to be alive. What a weird, it's like when we were talking to Brandon last week. One of the things he always says to me is like, just stay in the game. If you can stay in the game and you can consistently do well at just taking at bats, you're going to hit one out of the park. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see how we do at Boardwalk Fest compared to last year's data. Mr. Data King, Mr. Math over here.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that. And I'm also excited to see how then we transition to the fairs coming up, because you had teased it a little bit about this is sort of the beginning to the next phase. The fairs are going to be something atrocious. And it's something that I was working on today. Like, we leave Lake Fest, and that night we have to be at Auglaize County Fair, parked, set up, ready to go, because we serve the next day at 11 a.m. So it's going to be a real testament to the team, and some of the reps you're about to take at Boardwalk Fest is going to be a huge help for me. It's going to be a huge help for the company. It's going to be a huge help for everyone involved, and it's something that we're going to continually get better and better at. And then obviously next year we have events we got to start thinking about into 2026. Yeah.
No, it's going to be big. And like I said, that whole fair month there, end of July through August, wrapping up with the WOW raffle.
You just keep piling on events that I'm like, oh yeah, we have 3 fairs and then the WOW raffle. It's going to be like a fair.
Yeah, but I'm excited. Like, WOW raffle, it's going to be great because we went to Fort Recovery earlier this year. We kind of put a footprint down there at that private event that we went back there for.
What did we get a Fort Recovery for? I'm blanking.
Joy Fest.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that was a Fort Recovery.
We did really well there, and it was a small event. So, and then WOW raffle, like I said, is essentially a fair. So for 2 days, we're just going to be slammed out there. So I'm excited for that. But, before we get into Tim here, I did, we do our research before everything else like that.
Yeah, we do.
I
had half mine wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
Tim walked in. First of all, let me just say this: for anyone that's listening, for anyone that graduated from Marion Local, the weirdest thing in the world is calling him Tim. I'm still not comfortable with it, but I feel like we're adults now. I've ascended to another. It doesn't feel right. It's Mr. Goodwin. I might do that the rest of the interview. I can't do it. It's just too weird to me. But anyway, he walked in the garage here at our beautiful podcast studio, and he's like, "Well, these 4 or 5 things are wrong." So it's just. Oh, Mitch, you'll never grow up.
No, so no, he's not going to grow. That's how we joke. I got two kids. I got Riker and Mitch. So we all know you were in the band, but one thing I didn't know that you actually played football prior to joining the band. Mm-hmm. So they said you left sophomore year, or you transferred over sophomore year?
Yeah, I went to the transfer portal. Yeah,
the NIL money in the band was crazy.
The NIL
back
money
then.
in the band was just too good. No, it was Stevens. He's like a really good musician. Like, as far as musicians go, I was an aspiring guitarist. I had pretty good athletic skills, to be honest with you. I was pretty quick. Especially that 8th grade to freshman year, I had endurance and I could play and I could catch and stuff. And I just loved guitar. I'll be honest with you, I loved guitar. And then. Yeah, I don't know. Stevens convinced me. He was a really sharp musician guy. He was like, I can teach you to go to that next level. And he sowed me this promise, okay? And I go join the band, and this piece of shit quit the next year. I didn't even get him. So now I'm stuck, and my dad's like, well, no, you got a commitment. You got, he's like, well, you just committed this thing. You just, you got to reap what you sow, trying to teach me some lesson. So I couldn't go back. But then and Mr. Goodwin was so nice. He was like, yeah, you can just do both, And I was like, I can barely do one, let alone 2. But kudos for thinking. I still play guitar, though. I don't have any state titles, but I got.
Your dad makes fun of you, for quitting on the Bulls team, and you can't quit on the band, though.
I've quit on everything in my life. I quit the football team. I quit the Bulls team in Empire. I'm about to quit the TwoDads Podcast. Berkey quits the truck. There's so many things going. But anyway, we've got an amazing guest coming up here. What are you most excited to talk to him about?
Probably just get to know him a little bit, right? So I'm another coach from the area.
Nobody knows him. Everybody I've asked. I try to do the deeper. What's he like? Can you give me a story? They're like, I have no idea.
Yeah, so just to kind of dive in and get to know him more as a person, obviously the success on the field speaks for itself. I can see from afar the community that he's helped bring awareness to and help group as a bigger community, right? It's just massive. So when I first came to Coldwater from New Knoxville, it was you got to go to the Marion and Coldwater football game and go to the 50-50, right? Talk about the 50-50 and the massive 50-50. And then I went, and first year was at Marion, and Coldwater got beat pretty good. But as they were walking back from halftime, we were in like that back right corner of the field, like the southwest corner where they walk out. And it just looked like I didn't look that big. And it was just like, these are high school kids. And I was 26 years old, 27 years old is what it was. So it was just wild to see just the size of those kids. And then
corn-fed.
Just corn-fed. And
that's what everyone says. When I went to Columbus, or I go, the beautiful thing about the Tim Goodwin era, let's just call it what it is that when I go other places, people have heard of Maria Stein Marion Local that shouldn't know who Maria Stein Marion. Oh, the football team over there.
Yeah.
They're corn-fed. That's all they say. That's the only way they describe the hometown. They don't talk about the amazing community, how we all band together, the beauty of the school system, the education you can get, the football program, every whole nine. There's like, you guys are big corn-fed Midwesterners, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's to be fair.
Yeah.
Stereotypes are a stereotype for a reason, but yeah. I'm excited to ask him just like, I want to know how do you separate the personal from professional? He's an educator too. He was my Algebra 2 teacher. And then
what grades you get?
Math, I'm not. I'll be honest with you. I think I've said it many podcasts. I'm passable. Honestly, let me think. I'm genuinely going to go back through the things I remember from his class. I told him normal. He knows he was a kid that from India, I believe, that memorized the longest amount of the pi, like 3.14, could go the furthest.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I took from his class. No, I think between him and Rex Carr, shout out to Mr. Carr. Probably like a C. I probably got a C. I got it like average. I never claimed to be any good at math, but I definitely couldn't go home with D's. So I know it wasn't less than a C because my old man would have been pissed. He would have taken my guitar away and made me join football again.
See at 4 a.m. liftings. So I'm excited to get him on here. Like I said, he's a pillar of the community, and we'll get to know him a little bit better and, platform a little bit. And not that Marion Local football needs any more of a platform. They speak for themselves, but let people get to know him a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited. So for those that don't know, Coach Tim Goodwin is a high school football icon around here. As a head coach at Marion Local, he's led one of the most dominant programs in the country, and I say that honestly. Winning titles, setting records, and building a culture that goes way beyond the field. But he's not just a coach. He's also a principal, a father, a leader, and someone who's underrated and understands the psychological side of performance. He doesn't just talk motivation. He lives it, applies it, and passes it on. So today we're going to go deeper in the playbook, exploring leadership, identity, growth, and the moment that Mitch traded Friday Night Lights for a guitar. So excited to bring him on. Let's bring on Tim Goodwin. Hey, listeners, this ad break is sponsored by the American Cornhole Association. You ever show up to a party and think, you know what this needs? A custom-made regulation-sized cornhole board with my face on it. Well, good news. You're not crazy. You're just built different. Whether it's a wedding, a retirement party, a backyard barbecue, or your company's awkward team building event, a custom ACA Starboard is the kind of flex your guests won't forget. Proudly made right here in the USA and ready to slap your logo, slogan, or dad joke of your choice right on the front. Just go to playcornhole.org, pick your board model, upload your artwork, and their in-house design team will polish it up like your dad's prized riding lawnmower. Best part? It could be at your door in as little as 4 days, faster than your in-laws leave when they're at a cornhole tournament. And hey, use code 2DADS at checkout for up to 15% off your order because saving money is a sport. The American Cornhole Association, built right, made fast, and dad approved. All right. Well, Tim, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you being here. You're probably the most legitimate guest that we have had yet. I know Bill's excited to have you here too. Bill, kick it off. I mean, you got some stuff.
Yeah. So again, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. I'm a Cavalier, not a Flyer yet, but if you start recruiting Riker in the living room, we can eligibly move over to Maria Stein and open and roll. So you might get a future center or left tackle if you pitch him hard enough. But everybody knows you as Marion Local's head football coach. A lot of know you as a pillar of the community and a teacher there. My question for you is, if all that didn't go the way it did, what was backup plan number 2 or plan B? If you weren't going to be a teacher, you weren't going to be a coach, what would have been your next goal and mission of wanting to do?
That's a good question. As far as I can remember, I wanted to be a high school football coach. I was pretty set on that, and so if that hadn't worked out, if I had a bad experience, early on or something, if that's what you're asking, I don't know. I played college football very poorly, but I was blessed to have some surgeries and some PT, so maybe, I would have done something like that because, I spent a lot of time in the orthopedic surgeon's office, there for 5 or 6 years. So, maybe that.
Do you think that's part of your identity though? Like deep down, I don't want to get too super deep early. I know we talked about that prior. Just like, what part of your personality, like, are you a helper? Like, what fuels you to want to be a coach? You know, you'd said that, like, coaching has always been in your blood. What aspect of coaching was always attractive to you?
You know, I think that has definitely changed over my life.
Sure,
I think
I'm sure
most people would, if they're on a natural life trajectory, I think they would say their mission in life has changed. You know,
Sure.
Certainly, when I was a kid, it was just the excitement of it all. You know, my dad was the coach. I was, you know, a manager on the sidelines when I was 6 years old, and you know, he coached great teams and had, you know, all the pomp and circumstance. You know what you know, and kids today are still falling in love with the Friday Night Light thing. So, you know, I think I fell in love with that. Then as you played, then you know, you like the physical aspect of it. You know, I have a 2-year-old grandson right now. We just had him for 7 straight days, and that kid got up at 6 a.m. and didn't stop. I mean, he was wrestling, he was moving. I'm like, how many calories does this kid burn? And he's just running and jumping on the couch, you know, and the couch is like up to his chest level. And I'm just picturing, what if I would do something, you know, run and jump on something and pull myself up? I'm like, he's just a boy, you know? And like, I think a lot of boys are just wired that way. Yeah. Like they want to do physical things. They kind of want to maybe do risky things, you know, and I think football is part of, you know, can satisfy part of that, you know, so that was fun when you were actually playing. And then, you know, when you coaching is so much different than playing, as you would know, right? You know, but you're still, you know, involved in the aspect. But you know, in football, there's 11 moving parts. The other team has 11 moving parts. So there's 22 moving parts every play. There's a lot going on. It's intellectually challenging, and
it's like chess.
Yeah, it really is, and it helps when your pieces are a little bigger and faster than the other guys. You know, so but. It's my way of competing. It's my way of staying on point. Like, I don't think there's any place where I'm more dialed in on the face of this earth than on, you know, Friday night. And it's addicting. You know, that 40-second clock, you baseball guys, you play with yourself, you spit seeds, you know, play with the pine tar. Yeah. In football, that 40-second play clock is just unrelenting. And you got to be just mentally so focused. And now as I get older, I am so mentally exhausted after one of those games, but it's fun. So it keeps you young too.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good answer. You know, I thought when you said you had to be intellectually sound to play football, that's probably why Mitch dropped out and started getting in the band.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's nothing. It's just it's empty up here. It's just a coconut, you know.
So you did mention your dad in there, Bill Goodwin, right? So Allen East, Bill Goodwin Field, you know, very successful coach. What was it like the first time, you know, your dad took the field with you as a coach as well, you know, as you being the head coach and him working beside you, as you've always kind of protégéed him, right? So, you know, what was that like? Was it, you know, all right, this is my show, Dad, or were you really open to, you know, your dad, you know, being a mentor for you? As I mean, obviously he was your whole life, but really there on the field as a coach, I bet that was a unique situation. Yeah,
I mean, and it took some getting used to for sure, you know, because I'd coached without him for 5 or 6 years. I had been an assistant at Bluffton High School and actually competed against him a couple years when he was still coaching at Allen East. Then my first year at Marion, he was finishing up his career and wasn't there. But he came my second year, but it worked out great. It was a ton of fun. You know, he kind of focused in on the defense and I focused in on the offense at that time. So, you know, we kind of had our separation that way. But yeah, it was a great experience. And you know, I had my son on the sidelines for part of that and my nephew. And, you know, it was a great time.
Did you ever feel like as a young coach, all right, you said you did Bluffton, you did some of these, and you take over Marion Local. How was the program to start, I guess? When you took it over, what was it like, just to give me some context? Was it the powerhouse it is today, or what did you inherit?
I inherited a sleeping giant. You know?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the tools were there. I mean, we had the kids. they had actually let go of 2 coaches in 3 years before I got there. So it was a little bit scary.
Pressure's on a little
Yeah,
bit.
I mean, this wasn't just a soft landing spot for a young guy.
Who was the AD at the time?
Stan Wilker.
It was still Stan Wilker? Okay.
Yeah, but, and he was great, but, we got off to a great start, and we built momentum very fast, but, we had a great group of kids at that time, and the program owes a lot of debt to them because, they turned it around and got us going in the right direction for sure.
Well, you're 28 when this happens, right? Let's rewind a little bit. You're 28, and in your second season, you had a good start your first season. Obviously, he didn't get fired. That's just a shout out to Mr. Wilker. But you end the Delphus streak, right? You come in here, you prove the unprovable. They had some, I think it was Weber. Was Weber on that team?
Yep, Zach
he
Weber,
was insane, and I think my running back was Greg Schulte, I think, at the time, around that time. He was my cousin. He was amazing. He was a great one to learn from. But anyway, did that feel like the start of something, or were you still wondering if this job might eat you alive? Like, were you going through that balance of like, okay, I've got the hang of this after one season? How were you feeling going into your second season with a little bit of momentum?
No, certainly I felt a lot better just because I knew the kids. Like, I wasn't worried about the football aspect. I had the background, really. I mean, I'm not bragging or anything, but like I wasn't really worried about that. It was a different culture. Like, Mercer County's different. Southern Mercer County is different. And, I'm just a mutt from Allen County, I don't even think my mom and dad did some of that DNA heritage stuff. I don't think I got much German in me. I think I'm more English.
English, yeah, me too.
Yeah. So like, that's a big change, but, but I guess when you're successful and you do things and treat people all right, they come around pretty fast.
What was the difference in culture? I mean, you're talking Bluffton, which is a city, right? And you're doing your own thing. You're young. You're kind of figuring it out as you go, while also inducing this new thing, which is culture, right? What was that like? Was there a shock coming to Maria Stein, Marion Local? Was there a change? I mean, I'm a God-fearing man, okay? But if you plop yourself into Maria Stein, it is ultra religious as well, and I don't want to go down that path, but just like, what was the change of pace? Was it shocking to you? Was it different? Was it an adjustment you had to make? Did you have to lean on your wife? Like, how did you feel?
It was a culture shock for sure. Just pretty much everything. To be honest with you, just how things operated. A lot of schools around here, a lot of towns around here, have their own way of doing things. Mm-hmm. And it's been done that way for a long time, and it's probably not going to change.
No, not anytime soon.
And it took some getting used to, but, we're doing this podcast here in Montezuma, and right next door is the house that Keith Westrick lived in. And I used to come visit him, and we'd go out on the lake or whatever. So, but I had a great group of guys that just took me under my wing. Stan Wilker, we already talked about, Keith Westrick, Bill Elking. Those 3 guys just made it super easy. So, they were awesome.
I have one follow-up before, Bill, I know you got your question, but that's something that I'm a 36-year-old man, okay? Bill and I are trying to get 1% better year over year, or day over day, and better year over year. How important is it? And I just want you to speak to people that are listening, because we got a good group of not just Marion Local people. We just got a good group of guys who are always trying to ascend. They're always trying to get better, and I'm sure you can relate to that as you push people to lift more, or run faster, or push their bodies and minds a little bit further. How important is the other side to you? Surrounding yourself with people who also support you and lift you up. How important was that to your growth?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, I'm 50. You said you're what, 36?
Yeah.
You're just a pup.
Yeah, I know that.
And in my mind, you're 16 years old sitting in my math class. And by the way, we might as well talk about Mitch a little bit.
Yeah.
He was the classic kid that whatever those initials are, that means he has a hard time paying attention for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. I think some of that, he was on that spectrum, but he was such a neat kid. And at Marion Local, we already talked about this. It's different. It's, it's very, very homogeneous, mm-hmm. Everyone's pretty much thinks the same, dresses the same, acts the same, has similar aspirations. And that's great for a lot of things. But for me, I got bored with it, just having dialogue in class. And here's this kid in my class that can't sit still. He's okay in math, like you said. I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, like he didn't care. He marched to his own drum, and I just appreciate when we have kids at Marion Local that do that. I love those kids.
I gotta say thank you. It means a lot. I've always, it's weird that we come full circle some 20 years later, right? But I have always admired you for everything other than being a football coach. I could care less if you were a football coach, and that might be a reason why we connect. So I don't care who Tim Goodwin, the football coach, is. He was cool, man. We would sit there and we would chop it up. I'd show him new bands. I burned you a CD a couple times. I don't even remember that. But I'm showing him like, hey, I'm like, dude, Guns N' Roses just broke apart, okay? So did Stone Temple Pilots. Scott Weiland's now with Slash, with Duff McKagan and Izzy Stradlin, and they got this new band called Velvet Revolver. It's sick. You got to see. So we're doing our own thing. And I like I said, one of the stories I'll always remember is quitting the band, but I never feared how you felt. Like, obviously, we had talked. I still remember conversations with Coach. Hey, Coach, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, you coming back? But I knew you never meant it. It was sort of like, it was like a tongue-in-cheek, like salesman. Like, you want to, yeah, we could use you. We could always use resources. We need bodies. And I had some athleticism at a time when it was just a little different, or maybe a different brain that could get a play to work. You know what I mean? There's the Wes Welker types that are just weird dudes if you talk to them on the side, right? But for me, I always appreciate that, and I thank you very much for sharing that, though. That's cool to me.
So you're a math teacher, right?
I was, yeah.
Or you were, sorry, yeah. So you were a math teacher. So for me, baseball is a lot of numbers, right? And I'm not saying I'm the analytical guy out there that's going to tell you to bunt in a certain situation. There's gut feel to everything, right? There's numbers, right? You see what the best odds are. But do you use any of that, into your football schemes at all? Do you ever really break it down from a number standpoint, or are you just more of a feel guy? Because, I mean, I know there's two sides, and I always looked at it from a baseball perspective of, a bunt is a negative WAR play if you want to look at it, but it's a productive WAR play, right? So it's, do you ever look at the numbers and really make decisions based off that, or do you coach more with feel?
I would say both. Okay. Everyone has a way of breaking down film and getting kind of a feel for the other team and what they want to do in certain situations. And I think that I can do that best if I just sit and just watch the whole game and know the situation versus cut-ups. But then when after you do that, then the cut-ups and the numbers, sometimes they validate what you think. And sometimes they can sway you, but certainly, I don't want to get into all kinds of proprietary information.
Sure, of course, yes, of course.
I'm not going to ask you, your recipe for your bread.
What's your social security number, Bill?
But I think one thing that we do that gives us an edge is we have a way of doing things, both offensively and defensively, that I feel gives us an edge on each. And I'm a math guy, and I look at each play as an independent event, okay? And if there's certain things that we can do to increase, our chance of success on that independent event from 50% to 53% or 55%, over the course of a game, a season, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And we have systems of doing that, and and that's evolved a lot over time too.
Do you have notebooks in your room of just like notes you've taken over? And I'm trying to get a hold of your brain, because one of the talents, as you talk about being different, I'm getting there. I mean, like, there's not a lot of cracks in the Tim Goodwin framework, but I will say, are there notebooks in your closet where you just have been running stuff through your brain and going through? Do you do it do you write things down, or are you more of a mental note guy? Like, what's your style when you do sort of put your chess pieces to work?
I have notebooks everywhere.
I wonder. Yeah, see what I'm saying?
By my recliner in the living room, there's a notebook.
Yeah.
By my bed, there's a notebook.
Do you wake up at like 3 a.m. with like flash? Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And that's why we connect. I'm not kidding.
That's it doesn't happen year round.
No,
or anything,
I get it.
But and now that I've been doing it as long as I have, I'm like, you just have this Rolodex of solutions, right? Like, hey, back in 2014, when this team presented this, we did this and it worked. And now, 12 years later, I just remember that, or I can go to my notebooks because if we used it, I have it organized. If it's just notes, then I'd have a hard time finding it. But
it's like what we do with data, though. I mean, genuinely, we talk about data year over year. We have to do the same thing. Ours is a little bit more about inventory and not losing our butts on buying too much chicken and breading. And I know this is a weird coincidence or a weird example I'm trying to show here, but it fits. Like, we have to use plays from last year to understand how it sort of affects the year prior and year after. And then we also have to take into account that things have changed that year prior to this year, where there might be more people or there might be more pressure or they have different personnel in the truck that might change things. So like our throughput might be different. So it's fascinating to me. Let me ask you this. A lot of what you said is learning, okay? You learn. You then write in your notebooks, you jot down notes, you wake up in cold sweats like I do, and I fire off 20 texts to Bill. There's my text flying to Bill. Here's what we got to do next. That's his phone going crazy. What's one thing that you've had to unlearn from the last 10 years or your totality of coaching? What's one thing that you came in, this 28-year-old kid, right, as you say, who's coached under his dad, he did this, he did that, he did this, and it's always been this way. He's slowly working his notebooks, he's slowly crunching numbers, seeing changes, seeing pivots. What's one thing you had to unlearn from those years?
I would say, in the last 5-10 years, I've gotten a lot better of just recognizing when things aren't working as easily as they should. And, you're kind of like trying to pound a square peg into a round hole. And, I think I recognize that a lot faster now, and I think we waste less time. I was like, no, that's just not that kid's strength or our strength this year. But it's kind of like, going fishing. My brother lives on Lake Erie, and every summer me and a buddy go up and we fish for a day or two. And, we drive 3 hours to get to his boat. He's up by Huron, and, we're going to grind it out no matter what's going on, you know. And whether the fishing is good or not, we're going to fish because we drove,
right?
And the wind might be out of the northeast, and they say that's terrible for walleye fishing, but we're going to try to, catch all these sheephead and catfish and maybe catch 2 walleye over 6-8 hours, Whereas, if you lived right up there, I'd take the boat out as often as I could, fish for a half hour and just see, is this going to be a fishing day or not? Or is this going to be a grind? And if it's a grind, I'd go back in, unless my wife is pestering me too bad or something, it's just, it ain't today, boys, and I think the older I've gotten, the more I can say, it ain't happening today, boys. We'll try again tomorrow.
I could learn a lot from that, Bill.
Yeah.
There's certainly, I'm the definition of trying to just like, when somebody tells me you can't in a weird way, I pound that square peg to the round hole. I mean, it comes through the others. It'll get there. I may exhaust myself to the nth degree, but it gets through, and it's, wisdom's a beautiful thing. So,
well, we talked about it last week. We had an event that wasn't as successful, right? And we get to Saturday, and it's midday, and it's about the 3 o'clock lull, where we call it like from like 2 to 4,
True.
2 to 5. People have already eaten lunch. They haven't eaten dinner yet, so it's usually a little slow. And we just had like, a really rough day. It was 95 degrees out. People really didn't want to be out, out and about doing things. And we were sweating.
Winds out of the northwest.
Winds were out of the northwest, yeah. So it wasn't good chicken weather.
Not
I
good
wouldn't
chicken
say.
weather.
So we just said, hey, let's pack it up, right? Like, you just need to know when to cut your losses. There was no sense in us sitting out there for the next 5 hours to sell nothing. We would have actually lost money even if we had a good...
We didn't do that last year. To be honest with you, it was such a no, we said we would be there the whole time type thing. Like, we gave our word, and then at the end of the day, you start to pay these bills every week, and you're like, we're wasting propane, and this labor's getting way too high. So numbers guy coming in, it's very helpful.
Yeah, so, but Coach, you're on a 64-game win streak. That is beyond impressive. So, you've built a winning program here at Maria Stein. You gave credit to some of the people before you, that really do that. And I know how important a community and culture are to that. So I think it takes, the whole town to win usually. But, the team gets credit, you get credit, the school gets credit. Do you ever sit back and just, I know you game plan and you win a lot, but, on those days that you lost, you do lose whenever that next time will be in 6 years or something like that. Do you ever just have the fear of just, getting lit up? And you do your own fair share of, some butt spankings out there. So, do you ever fear that coming back on the other side, or do you feel you're prepared enough to, manage that?
Well, we're going to get beat. I mean, that's just like we're all going to die. We're going to get beat.
We say that all the time, dude. We're going to die. Might as well do something cool.
Yeah. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's going to be hard to take, just because I'm sure the other team is going to celebrate. Like no one's business. And sitting here in this garage in July, I don't blame them, but it's still going to be hard to take. We'll work through it. The biggest thing would be, did we do what we practice? Did we come close to reaching our potential? And you guys were talking about it. Like, we have won a lot of games just by not losing them. You guys were talking about your business. Sometimes just hang in there, just show up and
get your reps.
Yeah. Don't go bankrupt, and
keep the truck above water.
So it will be disappointing if we give the other team the win. That will be way more disappointing than the actual win or loss. But my identity is not, in wins or losses by any stretch. So I will be just fine.
I think it's so cool to hear that, because it's exactly kind of how we measure success at the truck. I know this is two polar opposite businesses, but it's the same thing. Did we show up? Did we serve the best product available? Was it out of our hands? Like, if we do all things right and the people don't show up because the winds are out of the Northwest, like there's nothing I can do. But how did the labor respond? How did the guys do? How did we do? One of the things that we're learning, and we talk about it podcast to podcast, is accountability. How did if you would lose, are we taking accountability for what we didn't do and what we could do better? And I think that regardless of what you're playing, whatever industry, accountability and awareness of that and reaching your potential is huge. My question is, elephant in the room. You've won that many games, and Bill and I are much different thinkers. We talked about that here on the podcast, even just joking around here, just my ADD and life, and just how I bother Bill and pester him. Does winning ever get tiresome? Like, does it? Anything that you have too much of in excess can waver in the point where it just becomes like another expectation. It becomes just another day at the office. Having won so much, do you still get the same fulfillment from winning?
Well, my fulfillment doesn't come from winning, so
you pivoted.
Yeah, that's one thing that has changed as I've gotten older. Like, because I was fortunate and won a state title my second year, and at the end of that year, you quickly realize I'm still teaching math to Mitch Long.
He's trying.
My kids are still working through the same problems at home. My wife is still going through whatever she was going through at work, and you quickly realize that was fun, but that's not satisfying. Like the process to get there was the fun. And just at Marion Local, I've said this many times and a lot lately, it's just so cool right now, especially. Like, I just feel like the whole school system, the whole community is pulling on the rope in pretty much the same direction. Like,
that's huge.
Yeah.
That's probably a testament to what you're doing. I mean, it takes a monolith. It takes somebody that's sort of steering it in the right direction. You know what I mean? And Bill and I say that all the time. Like, some of those things that I lead and Bill adapts to some of the things I say and changes and makes it better and stuff. But you still need a driver. You need a catalyst that sort of does that. The fifth truck will be a lot of numbers from Bill Ray. But the first to the second may be something from Mitch Long that sort of pushes it in that direction or makes us go that way. And I'm excited to see where that goes,
Yeah, I think, what Tim might be going with there too, though, is, I see the success in other programs in Maria Stein too. So I think, you've been here long enough, you've been there 20 plus years. You've now probably seen people that you've coached start to have kids that are going through the system, right? So what I've always joked about, in Coldwater with the baseball, Lou Brunswick to Brian Harlemer to Corey Klanke, of all that time, there's only 3 head coaches, right? That shows it. But those parents that, then reproduce, they know that winning culture. They know what the expectations are. And then they've already started instilling that in their young kids. And then by the time they get to you, how much work do you really have to do, right? It's the parents that have helped and the community that's helped get them to where they need to go. And then coach really just needs to kind of mentor and guide from that point. So it's cool to see the other, coaches. Obviously basketball's won a couple state titles. Me watching the baseball team here locally, they've had some success in Acme and junior Acme. So it's really cool to see just the whole town win, and that's coming from a Cavalier, but it's a MAC school, right? So
there's one thing I just thought of real quick, especially because of your system. Can we just say something nice about Todd Ashball? One of my favorite chemistry teachers. I loved chemistry. I still remember half the elemental table because he would quiz us on it every week. I'd be remiss not to ask you about Mr. Ashball and what he meant to your coaching staff, because he's taken the kids. I mean, you talk about me having ADD in sophomore year of high school. How about me in 7th and 8th grade when I'm coming online for the first time? What's it like having such a wonderful staff? And maybe say something nice about Todd too.
Yeah, well, we'll start out with Todd. He did coach junior high for us for a good long while. He hasn't really for a while now, but
sure.
He was such a character. Like there's hardly a day goes by where I don't think about him.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah,
genuinely.
And in some fashion, something happens, and you think of what Ashball would have said or done, and it's
listen here. All right, he's just flying around. He's got the hand.
And
gestures.
I know you two would have connected because
we
he was on the same spectrum with the tension.
100%. He would call me after class, just real quick, because I loved this. I loved Mr. Ashball. He was. Me and him connected in such a weird way in chemistry. And
well, if you were going to connect with him, it had to be in a weird way.
100%. Yeah. I remember he would just...
That's not a knock on you, but that's just where he was.
We would meet somewhere in the void. That's what I'd always say. I would be in such trouble for talking during class and stuff, and he'd say, "Long, you stay after class," and then he'd sit me down, and I'm like, "Oh shit, like I'm in some deep trouble now." And I'd be like, "Mr. Ashball, I'm just trying to I'm working through some stuff of like who I am," and he would just, "I know, buddy, me too." Like I'm just like, whoa, dude. He was the best, man. So, but we talk about your staff too. You've had a great staff to have to give you that system,
Yeah, and. I almost think that's my biggest accomplishment is just the staff that we've been able to establish and continue with and recruit new guys. But right now, I have a tremendous staff and I'm pulling back in some areas, and trying,
Same.
and trying to, and that's probably the hardest thing I've ever done was, relinquish some control over some things, but it's needed, it's necessary, it's healthy to give those guys opportunities to have more of an impact and work through. I made a bunch of mistakes when I was coaching, when I was a young coach,
mm-hmm.
and they have to be given that opportunity too to make those mistakes. So, great staff. And
when did that happen? When did you as a person go through this kind of? It doesn't have to be a specific year, specific month, or a specific moment, but like, do you remember when you started to realize that you had to relinquish some of the control? Obviously, you're the man, okay?
Right.
Ego is a terrible thing. Power is a terrible thing. We know that. I mean, it doesn't take a religious virtues to understand vices. Like, those are just the consequence of a positive and negative consequence spin off of winning. It spins off of praise. It spins off of glory. It spins off of being this like war hero on Friday Night Lights, right? Like, it's the that's what the kids, that's what the 12-year-old Tim Goodwin was chasing. Right. It was that glory for honor, for our, do you remember the moment you came off of sort of autopilot and were like, I have to have others have their moment?
I would probably say 2018, I had a coach and a real good friend, Dan Toby, pass away of brain cancer.
Yeah.
And I really think that's when I really started to transition more towards, this dude was the healthiest dude I've ever seen in my life, with like 10% body fat, and he watched everything he ate and he worked out and he just ups and gets an aggressive brain cancer and is gone in less than a year. And, you really start thinking about your own mortality, when something like that happens. But you also, I want this to continue. I want to leave it in a better spot than what I found it. And if I'm in control of everything when I leave, it's not going to be in a good spot because, all that control is just, there's going to be a void there, with guys that haven't been allowed to grow. So I really think that event changed a lot of things. And, maybe that was his legacy to me, was just that.
We say that a lot, to be honest with you. We talk about even something, the smallest nuances, and for me, as someone who, we joke, but like I try to notice the nebulous. I try to say like, why are you here? Not just you here for this interview. Why did you reach out? And I'm talking about Bill right now. If you're listening on the radio, like, why did you reach out and say you want to be part of Two Dads? Like, why did I get blessed with this opportunity?
Needed help, brother.
100%. If you saw my books, I'm blessed by the Lord. But I ask those questions, and maybe I don't think we'll ever know the answer, but maybe.
Yeah, I think what you said there, and obviously, the part about Dan's always sad, so. But, with the other coaches in the program and everything else like that, relinquishing a little bit of control and, getting them ready. I saw that, firsthand from Brian Harlemer when he did that with me when I became the JV head coach. I really wasn't fully ready to be a JV head coach in my mind. I took it because I'm going to, and I'm going to do good, and I trusted myself.
Sure.
But you worry and you question yourself till you get those first few wins under your belt. You're like, all right, I can do this. I'm in the right league. Like, I was gifted with a tremendously good roster as well. But I remember the first time I kind of butted heads with him on like what we were going to do roster wise, right? Like he didn't try to overly control it, but there was a kid named Zach McKibben, and he was playing shortstop, and you probably know him on the football field. Super great athlete, super fast. And for me, the shortstop's just the most important position. It's the quarterback. Sure. You got to know how to run all the bunt coverages, and everything. And Kibby, if you're listening, sorry about this one, but we ran like 2 bunt coverages in a row, and the kid didn't move shortstop. He just sat there, and we threw the ball into left field and where he was supposed to be. And then I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, this kid might just need to be a center fielder. And we moved him out to center field. And where he was just an athlete, he didn't have to think a whole lot. He was really good. And Harley, the next day, catches wind of it, and he's just like, why is Kibby playing center field? And I just literally told him, I said, I don't know if he's going to make it at shortstop at a varsity level unless he really matures, with his brain. And he gets out there and he goes center field. And then the next year he was out there playing center field for the rest of his career. So it was always one of those where it was like, that's that knock where the coach kind of didn't agree, but he also gave you enough, leash to, like you said, make mistakes. And maybe after 3 games, I'd have realized that was a terrible decision. And he's fast and athletic, but maybe he can't catch as many fly balls as I thought. So I like that from you, from being a, previous assistant coach, having coaches that trust you and let you grow because, hopefully, ideally, one of those guys is in the wings waiting for you to retire and will take over for you. And then maybe those other guys are going to get groomed and go elsewhere. I know Alex Rosenbeck's down in Dayton and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. But, with the small towns we talk about, Coldwater, Maria Stein, stuff like that, a lot of them run on rhythm. So what's one Marion Local ritual that you would fight to defend to keep if someone told you couldn't do it?
Okay.
I'd say the donuts.
Yeah, I mean the Friday morning mass and then the donuts afterwards. That would definitely be up there. I think there's several things that are just cool, and I don't know. I think there's a way that we operate, and this wasn't anything I did, that just levels out the playing field in terms of economics. I don't think that the kids walking the hallways would ever know who's a little more blessed that way than anyone else. Mm-hmm. At least that's the vibe I get. I wasn't ever a kid there. Maybe Mitch would disagree with that.
No, I'm with you.
I think there's certain things that we do that, like there's not the haves and the have-nots, and it's just how we do things. So, yeah.
How do you separate players? One of the things that I felt in different coaches that I've had, and I'm not going to name any names, sometimes I had felt in different sports or different avenues, or even as someone who had perception in Maria Stein, it's very difficult to separate the last name from the community. there's the Tobys, the Sweetermans, the Homans, the Mollers. There's a tons, right? How do you as a coach separate the bias of, well, this dude's older brother was really good. This guy isn't as good as the older brother, but I'm going to play this no-name kid who doesn't have a last name in the town. Like, how do you instinctually battle that? Is that even a challenge for you, or do you just play the best player that can play?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that's a thought at Marion Local, at least with the football. Like, I don't think anyone expects us to, or thinks that we do. I mean, I just think right from the get-go we said we're going to play our best. I made a speech at the beginning. My very first talk to the parents is I get it. Like, you want me to play the 10 best players plus your son.
Right. That's
okay.
Good. Right.
I mean, that's
right.
just how parents operate. I'm a parent. I mean, you want your kid to be successful, but we're going to play the 11 best, and it's up to your kid to work their way into that. They're going to be given opportunities, and we play as many kids as we can, and we're very fortunate that we go into a lot of games, especially the last 5 years or so. We're like, all right, we know we're 3 or 4 touchdown favorites. We're going to play more kids right from the jump.
Sure.
And then we tell the kids, like, if you want to play against Coldwater, where we're going to narrow down our roster and play 15. Like, you have these opportunities to get on film, and they trust us and they buy into it.
That's Tim Goodwin football. That to me will be one of your legacies. It has nothing to do, when you come from small towns and having lived in it, you're always compared to these last names of the community members who have contributed to society. It's not like it's undeserved. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying last names are strong lineage. It comes from that German background you talked about, and there is an expectation that this is my son. He will be the 11th man. He will play. And I think one of the things that I think you do super well is you look through and you find talent and you find kids that want it, and those kids find the opportunities. And I think that will be something that I look back and somebody asked me, what was it like, even 1 year under you? It was that. It was, I felt like I could play. If I gave it my all, I felt like I could play, and you would see that. Now, I talked to somebody like Nick Kesters. He works at RCS and stuff, and he was like, I hated Tim Goodwin my first year, but I loved him by the end. And I think that's because the legacy and the road that you built there is sort of one of understanding. It wasn't a foundation you could lay in a year. It wasn't one that you could lay in 15, because I still think you're laying the bricks right now. And I think you're starting to see the fruits of your labor as society goes in.
I do think, getting that rotation of players, though, and getting everybody in, and, they always joke, you play so many playoff games, by the time they're done, they play a full another season of football, right? So seniors play, 50, 60 games. I think that rotation, getting people reps at an early age is huge, because, how many sophomores get to play on varsity on the big stage, even if it isn't a blowout, right? But they're still going against varsity caliber guys on the other side of the ball. So getting those reps consistently at a young age and giving an opportunity to show, but they also get a ton of experience, right? You look at Ohio State, they might get to play versus Grambling State, right? But if they can get them in versus Indiana, Purdue, Nebraska games, they get a lot more valuable experience. And I think that's important. So, we talk about everything, but when the season winds down, Coach, the lights go out, it's off season, it's January, you finally got all the equipment back and registered back in the lockers, and jerseys have been returned, and everything else is going on. Who is Tim Goodwin in January? What do you like to do in that season?
Hopefully I'm the same person I am, because my identity is not in football. It's not in wins and losses. It's something that I really enjoy. And, but yeah, I'm an educator. I'm a believer. I'm going to do my thing, and, going to go in January. I'm going to be going to a lot of basketball games, girls basketball games, boys basketball games. It's just, I love the rhythm of the high school season. I love it. Like, there's such a rhythm to everything.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you here, outside of sports, okay, you have a son. We're a TwoDads podcast. We talk about our children frequently. We bring in the fold about how important it is to be a family man. You've mentioned it too. Like, in the off season, you hope you're the same dad that you were during the season. just a little less busy. But you coach your son and then watched him take his own path outside of football. Bill teased it before you got on. Like, I left the Bulls team in Empire. My dad didn't expect me to do that, you know. Maybe Grandpa did. I don't know.
Yep.
I'll talk to him again one day. But what did it teach you about identity as a dad, not just a coach, to sort of support your son regardless if he joined football or not? Because it was a big deal in your family, and now you have a member that's just said, it's not the same to me, Dad.
Yeah. Well, I have 2 daughters and the son, and that was another moment in my life where, they helped me become a better coach too. Just watching them grow up and how they reacted to certain stimuli and what they came home thinking and talking about. And I probably do the same thing to my kids too. I need to take a look at that, But in regards to my son, there was never any pressure, for him to be involved. He's dabbled a little bit. He coached with Kyle Koenig at Spencerville for a year. He's now just finished his degree as an accountant, and he's working towards a CPA. So
you hit him a different way, though. The math is still
he's still math guy and still pretty chill dude. Doesn't get too worked up, and he gets a lot of my characteristics for sure. But yeah, it was fun coaching him, more so because when I was coaching him, I was coaching all of his classmates too.
So all the buddies that were running around.
Yeah, all the buddies that had been, at our house or coached at Little League baseball and stuff. So I knew that group really well. So
was that weird for you at all, though? I mean, that's like a full circle moment. These little kids that were like tiny young adults. And I mean, we talk about us being kids. That's fair. We're still young men. But like, you're talking really young men. And now they're full circle, like 16, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. You're just like, does it ever hit you about, does time, being as important as it is in math, time and gravity are huge parts of all math. Like, does time ever hit you differently because of how close you are to math?
Oh, you guys are dads, so you kind of, once you have kids, you kind of measure time by them, right?
True.
Really?
True.
I mean, and so, once you're out of that, where they change so much in 5 years, like you guys are in the heart of it now.
They're changing weekly where we're at, dude.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm like, did you get taller?
For sure. It was weird. When I was young, and I was young at one point, when I was younger,
You're still young.
At graduation, you would watch a slideshow and watch, all the pictures of the graduates when they were little, and you're like, well, my kid's that age now, and how fast is it going to be when they graduate?
Yeah.
Well, now they're all graduated, so life goes at you fast.
My first experience of like kids getting old as a coach was like the first time I saw one of the kids in a bar. Like, they graduate, they're 18, and then you see them out, and whether they were 20 or 21, we won't say, and you look and you're just like, you're old enough to drink beer now? Like, it just hits you on a secondary level. And now I've been out of it long enough that some of those guys are having kids. So it's just like you see them out and they're carrying a baby, and it's just like, I mean, I only coached 7-8 years ago, but now you're a grown man now. You're a dad. Yeah. Like, it's full circle moment, which is really cool.
If I could just jump in, I don't frequent too many bars, so I haven't had that experience. But one thing that I'm super thankful about is that I stayed at Marion Local, because I had opportunities, opportunities.
Mason was a big one.
Yeah, and I was close to leaving a couple times, but I would have missed out on some of the best parts of doing this, and that is seeing these kids when they come back and have families, and that's my favorite part now.
What made you stay? Like, genuinely, what was it? What did the decision come down to? Was it money? Was it location? Was your wife wanted to stay? Like, what made you stay ultimately?
Yeah, it wasn't money. If it was money, I would have left.
Yeah,
But I think the biggest thing for us was my wife graduated from Ada. I graduated from Mountain East, both small schools. Okay, it's hard for parents, I think, if you went to a small school, it's hard to picture your kids being in a class of 1,000 kids.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like at Mason.
Ohio State was a shock for me.
Yeah, like they have 1,000 kids in a grade. That's just hard to picture.
Yeah, but think, linemen you'd have available for you.
I know.
You could have a pick of the litter.
But just think of how good your kid would have to be on any team. They'd have to be an all-star, basically.
Yeah.
To play varsity sports at a school like that.
Why didn't you go college or anything like that? Like, I mean, now that all the kids are graduated, the household is relatively empty. They're graduating college. Like, what stopped you from? I mean, I'm sure if you picked up the phone and called anybody, they'd say, "Yeah, Tim, we'll find a spot for you," even if it's assistant coach for a little bit or AD or whatever. Like, what keeps you in town now, long after the kids aren't there?
I don't think that's me. I
Love that. That's good.
One thing I learned a long time ago, and it was right when I needed it, and it was right when I was in that time where it was almost a bad thing that I was successful so early, because then people almost expected you to leave. But I was actually in a men's Bible study, and one of the points that I learned that always stuck with me is it's not where you are, it's who you are. And like that has been with me ever since. And I totally agree with it. I don't think it matters if I'm at Mason or at Marion Local. It's who I am and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. That's the important part.
What do you look in the mirror and see when you look in the mirror and measure yourself as a man? What do you what do you want to bring to the table every day?
When I look in the mirror, I try not to, because it's pretty, it's pretty ugly at this point.
I'm just saying, what do you want to bring to team? What do you want to bring? What I've gathered in this interview is that you've gained wisdom over the years. You've gone from competition feeling you to the excitement, to the tackling, to the chess match, to now you're a little more tired than you used to be, and getting up isn't as easy as it used to be. But like, there's got to be something that fuels you when you walk on the field, and you have to measure yourself as a man, whether you look in the mirror as a figurative kind of concept. What do you want to bring to the table for this generation, or maybe your closing chapters as you continue on?
Yeah, I just want to be someone that the kids can count on, can trust. Is going to be a good example. I'm not a real complicated guy. I don't sit at home writing mission statements or vision statements or anything like that. Like, I just want the kids to have a positive experience, learn some things about themselves along the way. I think that's one thing that I love about football is, when you're in the midst of two-a-days, it's 90 degrees out, and you got to put on a sopping pair of shoulder pads and go out for the second time of the day, like, that sucks. It really, really sucks, and there's no way around that. And I just think for me and the people around me, I think that's something good, like they're doing something hard and figuring out, hey, I can do this and I can have fun doing it. Because that's one thing I tell the seniors especially is like, especially the first 6-8 weeks of practice, it's in the summer. It's a long ways to that first game, and it's not fun always, but it's like, it's their job to make it fun. I'm
better for having done it. Yeah. I genuinely mean that. I'm better. I did a year or two. I'm better for have done that under you.
I that's what I believe. But I worked landscaping for 6 years, and you could go to the crappiest job, and if you had a good crew around you, you could have fun. I stacked bales up in the haymow when it's 150 degrees, seemingly. But if you had a couple good guys that you were having fun, it was fun.
Yeah.
That's
how we feel in the food truck all the time, dude. That's legit.
Yeah. When it gets hot and we get bored, we have this little game where we'll throw like French fries in little cups, and we'll just kind of buy our time. We joke around.
Play cornhole with French fries.
Yeah, so it makes it fun.
That food truck's got to be similar to a haymow. I mean, really?
Yeah,
you got those hot fryers going on a hot summer
Rich almost passed out. We had a fire the other week. I mean, it's
just a tin can, and you just roast in there, so it gets hot. So, you talk your principal as well now, right? So I think your philosophy, I kind of know the answer to this question a little bit, but are you ever able to, is it ever difficult to switch from coach to principal? If you coach, before school, maybe you go to lifting or something, and then you got to be a principal right after that. Is it ever difficult to switch that mentality of how you approach it, or do you approach both jobs the same way?
What if someone pisses you off on the field and then you got to go be their principal the next day? Like, how do you shut that?
It happens all the time. Like, if I'm pissed at someone, it's not, it ends. It's going to be over, and we're going to talk like it hasn't happened. No, they're very similar. I love teaching. I love learning. I love observing and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And it's pretty seamless, to be honest with you. Obviously, I have to have support logistically, with my fellow administrators to pick up some stuff, right after school. If something needs done right after school, it's going to be hard for me to do it,
Right.
unless it's an emergency or something. But yeah, it just works. And as part of that, what I was talking about, like right now, we got a great administrative team led by Mike Pullman, the superintendent. Like we're all pulling the rope same direction.
I was in his office a couple times.
Yeah.
He used to be a principal at
Knoxville.
New Knoxville,
Yeah.
so he used to always
He had
he
me in
used
the
to
principal's office
dunk
a
on the
couple.
assemblies.
I was in the principal's office a couple times with Mike Pullman.
Yeah. Like you knew where you stood. Like
I respected the hell out of him.
Yeah, he's not going to change, and that's a good thing. And like everyone, and like I said, he's at the top, and we're all pulling that rope together. We all work well together, and it just seems to work. I don't know if it could work everywhere, but it works at Marion.
Well, you said you surround yourself with the right people. It sort of works its way out. I only have one more for you right now. It is 25 years from now. You talk about that. You talk about former players. You talk about your son going through the program. You talk about seeing, and Bill, you had mentioned it, the fruits of your labor being that they build the system now, teaching it because they went through the system themselves. One of your former players is now on the Marion sideline. You're long retired. What do you hope that they carry with them that you planted?
We've always talked about being humble and working hard. That's what we've always talked about. And I just hope I look out there and I see the result of that.
I think you will. I genuinely think you will. But this sound is a very special sound. It's one I didn't share in the notes, but we play a game show every week. This game is called Punt or Play. Are you interested in playing our game show, Coach?
I'll try it.
We've never had anyone say no yet. Bill, why don't you play alongside
All
this
right, I'll
game?
play
It's
as
not a
well.
competition this week. It's just a fun little one I put together. Coach, it's time for our highly controversial, locally beloved, and completely unscientific segment called Punt or Play. Here's how it works. We're going to hit you with a list of football movies, okay? Some legendary, some laughable. If you love it, you're going to play. And if and you'll run that like you would on Friday night with your notebooks and all kinds of fun stuff, no questions asked. And if it's garbage, you'll punt it out of the stadium and pretend it never happened. Okay, so punt is this movie is trash, and play is this movie is great. I'm going to list some football movies, and you guys will just rapid fire. We're going to go back and forth, and we'll end this segment. How's that sound?
Love it.
Okay, excellent. Here we go. 30 seconds on the clock. Bill Ray is playing alongside Tim Goodwin. Must I say, just a beautiful crew over here. We love to see that. A great crew I surround myself with. Here we go. Friday Night Lights. Would you play it or punt it?
Play.
Parts of it, play. Yeah.
Okay. Remember the Titans.
Play.
Rudy.
Play.
Varsity Blues.
Play.
Punt.
The Blind Side.
Play.
Punt.
Any Given Sunday.
Punt.
Punt.
We Are Marshall.
Play.
Play.
Go Herd.
The Water Boy.
Play.
Punt.
Draft Day.
Punt.
Little Giants.
Play. Childhood favorite.
I don't know that one.
Okay, that's fair. Radio.
Been a long
Punt.
time. Play. I think I liked it.
The
but
Longest Yard. Either version.
The old version first. Play.
I would go with it.
All right, that's Tim Goodwin. Thank you for being here, Coach. We genuinely appreciate it. Thank you so much. Bill Ray, thank you for being here as well. Any last remarks before we go?
No, we'll see this year, Coldwater Marion game, and two dads are going to try to win the 50-50.
Go Flyers.
We'll accept it. Flyer ball.
Flyer ball, baby. We'll see you next week for another episode. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Two Dads Podcast. We'll see you next week.